Getting naked on the internet is not going to be easy for a lot of people anymore. Thank you for joining us on the Nikki Medoro Show. I'm Nikki Medoro. Kim McAllister is right there. And yes, my friend, Meta is trying to keep those naked pictures from your children's eyeballs. So I don't know if you saw this. Now, I get the idea of what they're trying to do. I just can already see a way around it. Instagram is testing features that's going to blur messages containing nudity to safeguard teenagers and prevent potential scammers from reaching them. So little Timmy is sitting there, trying to make friends with who he thinks is another, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old boy. And you know how the conversation can sometimes go.
Yep.
Show me mine, I'll show you yours type of thing.
No. Yeah.
So apparently Meta will recognize if somebody is under the 18, apparently, which I still think is the biggest problem. But anyway, and then will blur. I guess they'll detect the butt or the boob or the genitals and then blur it and then ask you, are you sure you want to send that message? I appreciate the effort. I mean, I really, really do. Meta
Don't you
says
think it should be done for all ages? Like anybody who's sending naked pictures, they should have a policy that says,
we
don't do that on this platform.
No.
Therefore, not only are we going to blur it, now that we've seen it and know that we have to blur it, we're going to not allow you to send it because that's not what we do here.
It's similar to, when, I don't know if this has ever happened to you because you're such a nice person. I think it's X. Yeah, I think it's X. Well, one of them, I want to say it's X. And maybe this might have been one of the iterations, but it's not doing it anymore. If you send something with kind of harsh language, it gives you a warning. It says, we're trying not to be cruel or do something here. And I'm like, meh, delete. I feel like
I have never seen that message. No.
Says something about the difference between how we're online together. Yeah. Calling people. I mean, it's basic thing. It's not like I'm harassing, but if you use like you're an idiot or those like kind of trigger the words, right?
Sure.
Which guilty. But yeah, I feel like you make a good point. It's why should nudity? Here's a question. Do we have to send naked pictures to each other? I mean, is this something that we really, doesn't it cause? You guys let me know in the comments. Is this something we need? Do we need the ability to send naked pictures to each other?
No.
I know that it's since the internet's been created, people have been sending naked pictures to each other because it's just in our nature. But it does kind of seem like let's just get rid of that option.
What do we tell our kids? The minute you send something like that, it lives forever on the internet.
Exactly.
You can never trust anyone, right? Never.
Never.
Either someone is doing it for nefarious purposes, or this is like the new scene where you're supposed to send a picture of your parts to people to date you.
Yeah.
Right? People that are interested in each other. And there will be some people that will say, listen, I'm a consenting adult. There should be no problem if I want to send a picture of my boob or whatever it may be. It should be totally fine.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
First of all, I question your life choices, but okay. So maybe this is the way you think I should be able to do this if I want to do this. But I think platforms have a responsibility, duty to protect especially the young. And if that means that we don't allow it at all, then that's what it means. Because we don't need to see that. So Google should say, if we have the technology to blur it, then we have the technology to detect it. And if we have the technology to detect it, we can kill it on sight. Done.
Sorry, I'm wearing a hat for the very first time, and I'm not used to having a microphone in front of me.
This is your new hat, right?
This is my new hat. I got it in Vegas. There's bike life on it.
It's
I love
cute.
it. It's cute.
Yeah.
Now, this is the other thing that's the tragic part of this whole thing is that when you're talking about kids, they get blackmailed, right? So your poor kid thinks he's sending or she's sending a picture to a friend or someone their age. It's not, or it is, and they still blackmail you. Like, I'm going to send this to your parents. And then what happens? Tragically, some of them unlive themselves, right? Because they can't handle it. Or it's spread to other people at school. We don't need that happening. No. I do not need the ability, and I don't use it anyway, to send naked pictures. You want to get an OnlyFans? You want to do that? You want to have to prove, you're an adult, and put your feet in pudding or whatever the hell you want to do. Knock yourself
We're
out.
back to the pudding
We're
again,
back
are we?
to pudding.
We're back to the pudding.
But I just don't think that social media and basic technology needs to have that feature. I just don't.
I don't think so either, especially when you're looking at places at features on platforms like Google or even Yahoo or Facebook or Instagram or X or all of these social media platforms. It's not necessary. As you mentioned, there's a time and a place for this.
Exactly.
And it's not on those sites. It is whatever site you mentioned where the feet in the pudding happens, right? Exactly. Like those are the places you go to see the naked nudies. We don't need to see it on any other site. And so if there's a place for it, then go to that place if that's your jam, right?
Exactly. Like
otherwise, keep it away from polite society. God, I sound like I'm an 80-year-old woman, but that's the way I feel.
I also think the truth is that we've seen the consequence of...
I should be like, nudity, woo!
No, I just feel like we see the consequence. We've seen what's happened. And, sometimes just because we can doesn't mean we should. Just because we've had the ability to send our boobs and our butts and everything else to each other doesn't mean we can handle it. Sometimes society shows you know what, maybe we shouldn't give us this freedom to do everything. And so we can't handle it. So just take it away. I don't know. I mean, and it's scary because social media and phones and everything has such a reach. And that brings me to this. And I apologize. I can't find the email. I was trying to find it. One of our viewers sent me an email saying you have to watch this show and it's on Netflix. It's called the Antisocial Network. I have a picture because they do these kind of graphics. Here it is. They have these graphics on there and it talks about things like how basically, and it leads all the way to Donald Trump, basically how growing up in the early 2000s with chat rooms and AOL online and the small communities that were created led to things like 2chan in Japan and then 4chan in the United States, where they created these memes and this kind of community that kind of started from liking things out of Japan and the cartoons and the anime. And it grew into people taking it into this really dark and conspiratorial way. So much so that when Donald Trump was elected president, it was huge on all these platforms, the saying, we memed him into the White House, and how it tapped into, and I don't want to give the whole thing away, but I urge you again, it's called the Antisocial Network. It's on Netflix, but just about how, these chat rooms of oftentimes, and I don't mean to be sexist here, but lonely, angry men kind of found a place to meet. And they kind of spiraled together, either politically or, sexist, very violent against girls. There was this whole part about girls and video games and how that was apparently threatening to men. All of these different aspects then culminates into conspiracies and QAnon and the things. And we've talked about QAnon and that whole conspiracy. And they talked to the people. They talked to this one person, Kim, and it blew my mind, who was a QAnon influencer, who was so down the rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden, reality kind of poked a pinhole when, JFK Jr. doesn't show up and rise up from the dead, when certain,
things
dates
don't happen that are
things
supposed
don't
to
happen. And also like all of these signs of, oh my God, Donald Trump's working with Q because Q tweeted this and then Trump tweeted that. And all it was a manipulation of a timestamp on a tweet, and how easy it is to take one thing and create a whole narrative. And these men oftentimes were just messing with people, and look where it got us. And so whether it's sending nude pictures or, the reach of social media and how dark it can be, sometimes we're just showing each other we're not always responsible, right? Like we maybe don't need this much access to each other and to spread kind of dangerous messaging all over the place. And again, I don't mean to call out men, but oftentimes it is this threatening kind of change of what masculinity is, the role of men in society, diversity, having more women in positions of power. I mean, I could totally see a large swath of men feeling extremely threatened that the world is no longer working for them.
What's the name of those people that they haven't been able to
Incels.
attract it? Yeah, they haven't been able to attract a girlfriend.
Involuntarily celibate.
And
It's
they're
an
angry
incel.
about it.
Yeah.
And so they go down this dark path of being angry and wanting to hurt people because this is their lot in life.
Yeah.
And they see everyone around them happy or maybe paired up, and they have been unable to achieve this for whatever antisocial behavior comes their way. Yeah.
It's and it's dangerous because, well, one, men and women are different. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about gender and all those sorts of things. I am talking about, just how you look at a situation and the way that you handle it. And I will say that it is a social construct. When you have been raised in a world that has catered to you for generations, and then that starts to shift, and in some ways quickly and radically for you, and there's no one guiding you through it. There's no one saying, just because you lost out to that job and that woman got that job doesn't mean she stole something from you. Just because she said no to your date or your advances and said yes to that guy over there doesn't mean she's scorned you in some way. The world doesn't work like that. But I can understand if you are hanging out in chat rooms where they're telling you, nah, it's her fault. F her. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. She should bow to you. She should do X, Y, and Z. It can get into your head, and all of a sudden you can take it out in extremely violent ways. And that's dangerous, Kim. It really is. And I know you're not raising your son that way. I'm not raising my son that way. Life can be unfair. And believe me, there are communities in this group that have been knowing that message since birth. It's just some other people who've never experienced that message or that feeling, that uncomfortable feeling. Like, what do you mean I don't get what I want? Yeah. Welcome to the real world, honey. That's the way that it works. So
no, it's the dark side, the underbelly, the ugliness.
Exactly.
And if they have a way to stop it, I don't know why they wouldn't.
Exactly. And again, it's called the Antisocial Network on Netflix. Check it out and let me know in the comments or email me, the Nikki Medoro show at gmail.com, what you thought about it, because it's truly, truly eye-opening. And then I heard about this other thing, and I never heard of this show. So apparently in the early 2000s, which is really funny because we're talking about all this, there was this show in the UK. It was on the UK's Channel 4 Cutting Edge program. And it was called Boys and Girls Alone. Now, it's a documentary experiment where 10 boys and 10 girls, all aged 11 to 12, are split up to reside together for 5 days and to see how they fare. And I want to show you this TikTok video that this woman talks about how she never stops thinking about this actual show. Here we go.
My Roman Empire is that study that they did where they put a group of girls and a group of boys in separate houses without adult supervision and guidance just to see what they would do. And they watched the boys descend into sheer chaos, destroying each other, destroying things. They weren't able to feed themselves. It was just chaos. Whereas the girls, they found, worked together. They came up with a list. They compromised. Some girls cooked, some girls cleaned. They worked together. And at the end of the study, it was concluded that the girls were objectively more successful in this experiment. And I don't know. It just explains a lot about the world.
You think? And again, I don't mean to be sexist. I feel like when I say this, I always have to couch it because I'm a woman. I have to couch things, which really pisses me off. I'm not meaning that guys are terrible. But what I am saying is, like, when you look around and the world has been created and run by men in large part, not 100% obviously, but in large part, makes you just wonder what the flip side is. Like the alternative universe where at the beginning it started a different way. All other things remaining the same, like women still have the same personality traits, all those things being equal. But just if women had the power. And I just daydream about it because obviously we don't know. But that experiment is so interesting. I got to find it. I haven't watched it yet. It's on this UK show, Boys and Girls Alone. I'm assuming the internet can find it for us. So check it out. But interesting. How do you think your kids, I know you always talk about Jacob, but how do you think your kids would fare, honestly, if they were put in that kind of situation?
So it depends on, are they the same age, right?
10
Because
and
now
11.
I've
10,
got,
11.
okay. So at 11, Julia would have been fine.
Okay.
She would have managed how many days? 5 days. She would have managed, and she would have worked well together with the other girls in the house, and it would have been fine.
Right.
There might have been some girl drama.
Yes,
right?
Definitely.
There's always girl drama.
The politics might be a little touchy, but yeah.
But would they have managed to make dinner? Would they have all managed to find a place to sleep?
Yeah.
You know, would they have maybe clicked up with, you know, one group versus another group? Maybe. But it would have been, they would have existed and it would have been fine. Jacob is 10. And
so right now, if you put him in a house,
I don't think it would be a good scene. He might survive, but it'd be rough.
Yeah.
They just, a lot of times, and I don't know if it's my kid or many kids, my boy seems to have a trouble with impulse control.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he'll do stuff where it's like he does it from a good place, like trying to be helpful, but it ends up making a god-awful mess. So would the kitchen be a disaster? Yes. Would it come from a good place in his heart? Sure. But when you look at, you know, how are you able to exist on your own? Are you able to keep things clean? Are you able to feed each other? Whatever. No. Yeah. What was it the other day? He decides, he gets up this is during spring break last week. He gets up and he thinks, I'm going to plug in the waffle iron because we're going to have waffles. So I'm going to preheat it because I know Dad's going to be up in a few minutes and he'll make waffles for us. So my husband comes out. I almost call him the husband. The husband comes out to the kitchen and sees smoke rising from the waffle iron.
Oh, no.
And he's like,
what the hell?
God damn it. What? And so he's yelling at Jacob because Jacob plugged in the waffle iron. And it's this big mess. And then Jacob's trying to do something helpful and he feels bad about it.
Oh,
but you see how the house almost burned down?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so these are the things that I think there's kind of like this is the thing I've tried to teach. Fill in the blank. Right. If I do this, what will happen?
What's going to happen next? Yeah.
It's ongoing statement. If I do this, what will happen? So that you try to think about into the future and it's not just into the now.
Right.
I don't know if this is working at all. It didn't seem like it worked with the waffle iron, but you know what? I don't have a lot of faith that boys are going to make it happen.
Well, I also think, and just looking at this experiment for what it is and knowing what we know about development of boys versus girls, I feel like, you know, if the girls were 8 and the boys were 10, maybe it would have been even more of an even playing field but Dylan, if Dylan was alone at 10, he was pretty self-sufficient. I definitely know my son has grown up wanting to feed himself. So according to this article about the show, the boys couldn't feed themselves. Dylan would make sure at least he had breakfast, lunch, and dinner because the kid needs every single meal and he will cook it himself. Right. But it's also this kind of Lord of the Flies mentality where who's ever stronger or bigger or whatever can kind of bully the others. This article about it said, the boys broke into 2 warring gangs within one home. Even when the boys recognized issues with the way they'd structured the home, read no structure, they didn't have the social or emotional bandwidth to attempt to fix it. So no one was willing to probably give in and be like, look, guys, we should probably work together because they were like, you know, pussy, and got punched in the face or something. You know what I mean? Like those sort of things could happen. And so it's so interesting. And it's just this kind of daydream that we kind of have to live in because we can't go back in time. We can't go back in time and say, well, if women would have been you know, if we would have taken the rib from Adam instead of, you know, that whole sort of nonsense, right? It's this mentality that we can't change. But maybe, you know, when you're voting and you're looking for the next leader of, I don't know, the country, you don't just automatically look at the man, right? You don't, it could possibly be a president and vice president that are women, right? You can have, I know California has, not anymore, but 2 women senators. Like, why don't we try something completely different for a little while and see how it goes, right? Like this show. It's 2 women. I think it's going well, don't you?
I think it's doing very well. Everything is clean. Everyone is well fed.
We're on time.
People are happy.
Exactly. All right, you guys, thank you for joining us. Tomorrow is Friday. We're going to talk a little bit about politics and making up your freaking mind. So there is a guy, Assembly Member Vince Fong, who is now going to be able to run for 2 different offices. And as a voter, would you want to vote for somebody who couldn't make up their mind on which office they actually wanted? I just feel it's a little greedy. I feel it's a little wish-washy, but you guys let us know. Tomorrow also, I'll have some food segments. I have this one thing that I'm dying to try. I also have a recipe. And then I'm going to tell you what my favorite story, my most recent favorite story has been. And it kind of has something to do with what we just talked about. All right, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you don't miss a moment. Please donate to our Patreon. If you love still seeing us here, we need the support for the show. So please go to thenikkimedoroshow.com, click the Patreon button, donate any amount you can afford, 1 time a month. Our PayPal is up and running, and they don't take a big old hit of it. So just go to paypal.com, hit the send button, and then put in the email address, thenikkimedoroshow@gmail.com. Super chats, super stickers, super comments are still available as well, even if you're watching this as a recording. And then also support the show by supporting our sponsor, Auntie Tabby's Island Flavors. She makes delicious hot sauces and a guava barbecue sauce. Look at that right there. It's so freaking good. A pineapple hot sauce, a hibiscus hot sauce. So check it out. AuntieTabby's.com/NickKim, Nikki M, NIKKIM, whatever, however you want to remember it. Nikki M, AuntieTabby's.com, 10% off.
KIM.
There you go. I like that. No mouse at the end. But go to AuntieTabby's.com/Nikki M and you can get 10% off every single order. And we appreciate all the love and support. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.